The prison door closed with a heavy thud. The dull sound echoed in his head, like the final chord of a failed symphony. Diddy ran his hand over his face, trying to come to his senses. He still couldn't believe that this was really happening. Yesterday he had been in his luxurious mansion in Miami, surrounded by models, businessmen and sycophants who laughed at his every joke. And today, here he was, in a shabby cell, where instead of Banksy's art on the walls there were old, faded graffiti about gangster fame. When the guard opened the door, 3 people entered the cell. All of them were big, muscular, with wolf eyes waiting for the moment to attack. The oldest, gray-haired man with numerous scars on his arms, spoke first. "What, Star? Did you think that if you had millions, you would never end up here?" Diddy clenched his fists, but he understood. One wrong word and there would be no lawyers or cameras here, only darkroom corners and punches that no one counted. "We remember you from the 90s, brother," continued the second, short and stocky, with a bulldog tattoo on his neck. "You have debts. Do you know what we are talking about?" Diddy was silent. Yes, he knew. He knew about old cases, old investments that he had once turned over, thinking that he would remain untouchable. But now the game had changed. The older man moved closer, his breathing was heavy, almost the same as the atmosphere in the cell. "You have only one choice, either we will solve the issue here, or you pay. But not with money. They are worthless here." Diddy felt a cold sweat run down his back. He had always thought he was in control of the game. But now the game was in control of him. The cell was silent, heavy as the concrete walls around it. Diddy took a slow breath, trying not to show his fear. He was a gambler, and a gambler never shows his cards. But these guys weren't poker fans. They played by their own rules. "I don't know what you're talking about, brothers," he finally said, trying to sound confident. The one with the scars cocked his head to the side, as if in surprise. Then he smiled. "Oh, you're a bitch, you're spinning." Suddenly a blow. Fast, sharp, right in the stomach. Diddy ducked, but stayed on his feet. His mouth tasted bitter, as if he'd swallowed poison. "Do you remember now?" They grabbed him by the shoulders, pinned him against the wall. "The 90s, New York, Harlem. You thought you were above us then. But debts don't burn, brother. They just pile up." Diddy exhaled. He knew this moment would come. The streets don't forget. And now he had 2 choices, either he finds a way to make a deal or he becomes fodder for the prison wolves. "What do you want?" he finally asked. Scard stepped closer, his eyes gleaming with pleasure. "You're going to have to work. You want to live, you're working for us. You still have people on the loose. We need them." Diddy shook his head. "It's a trap. If I give you access to my connections, I'll be killed before I get out of here." Scard laughed. "Oh, you're already dead, Diddy. I just don't get it yet." A whistle blew from behind the cell door, signaling that the guard was leaving. The 3 men walked away as if nothing had happened. "Think fast, because you don't have much time." The door closed, leaving Diddy alone in the darkness. He sat down on the narrow bed, massaging his ribs. The game had just begun. And either he would find a way out, or this would be his final act. After the 3 authorities left the cell, Diddy sat on a narrow mattress, trying to catch his breath. His stomach throbbed from the blow, but the pain didn't scare him as much as the realization that this was just the beginning. Prison wasn't a nightclub where he was used to being the master of his life. Here, no one was impressed by his expensive suits, there were no crowds of fans. Here, everything came down to survival. And now he was the prophet. Several hours passed when the door opened again. "Fuck you, your time has come," the guard snapped, pulling his arm hard. He was led into a dimly lit corridor. The prison was noisy like a hive, the sounds of metal clanking, loud voices, swearing. But Diddy understood that he wasn't being taken for nothing. He was led into the shower room. Puddles of dirty water glistened on the tiles, and the corner smelled of blood. "Oh, the star has arrived," smiled one of those who had been in his cell before. Now there were more of them. 5. "Do you think you can still play by your own rules?" Suddenly one of them took out a homemade sharpener and in one motion slashed Diddy across the shoulder. The blade entered the body shallowly, but immediately splashed hot blood. "You either work for us, or become another corpse in the statistics," the scarred one hissed, squeezing his neck. Diddy inhaled, trying not to panic. "You know what I can give you," he croaked, looking straight into the scarred one's eyes. The latter leaned closer, his putrid breath blowing on Diddy's face. "Come on, Bazaar, before it's too late." Diddy knew that this was a game to the death. Now he would say the wrong thing and they would slaughter him right here in this stinking shower room. He had to be cunning. "I can get you what you need. But you have to give me something in return." The prisoners looked at each other. They liked the answer. "We'll let you live as long as you're useful." The scarred man leaned closer. "And if you frame us, we'll make sure your body doesn't even find a place in the morgue." Diddy nodded. He knew he had no choice. But the game was just beginning, and he intended to win it. Blood ran down his arm, dripping onto the cold tile. The pain from the cut was dull, but it was excruciating. Diddy inhaled through his nose, trying to stay calm, even though his body was trembling subconsciously with tension. He was used to dangerous games, but this was on a different level. Scarred nodded to one of his men. The man came over, grabbed Diddy by the shoulders, and pushed him against the wall. "Do you think you can bargain? You're just another dog lost without his money or his guard." Diddy exhaled heavily, trying not to show his fear. "If I were just a dog, you'd be done with me by now. But I can get you things that no one else here has." Scarred wiped his lips with the back of his hand, then grabbed Diddy's jaw, forcing him to look straight into his cold eyes. "Go on." Diddy felt that this was his only chance. "I still have people outside. I have channels. You want control of the supplies in this prison? I can arrange it. But I need access, otherwise nothing will happen." The scarred thought for a second. "Access? A phone. I know you have black mobiles for communication. Give me one, and in a week you will have a shipment of such contraband that this entire prison will be ours." The room fell silent. The prisoners looked at each other. It was a risk, but the idea was tempting. Finally the scarred bowed his head. "Okay. You have a week. But if you screw up, you're dead." Diddy nodded, and inside he was already making a plan. He didn't know yet if it would work. But one thing was certain, he had no intention of being anyone's target. The next move was his. The next morning, a skinny Latino with a faded snake tattoo on his neck walked into Diddy's cell. He tossed a small package at his feet. "Here's your ticket to the game, Star. Don't be a jerk." Diddy picked up the package and unwrapped it. Inside was a small, unbranded cell phone with a cracked screen and an old keypad. But this was his chance. He ran his finger over the buttons, then looked up at the snake. "How do we contact the outside world?" The Latino grimaced. "We don't have AT&T here, you idiot. There are already 2 numbers on the phone. One is your hotline, the other is ours. If we don't get our first installment in 3 days, they'll find you with your throat slit in the shower." Diddy gritted his teeth. "I know what I'm doing." The snake nodded mockingly and disappeared through the door. Diddy lay down on the bed, staring at the ceiling. He had to act quickly. He dialed the number. The beeps went on for a long time. Then a woman's voice, nervous, quiet. "Hello? It's me. God. Are you being listened to? Always. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. What do you need? Diddy inhaled. Get me the money. And new contacts. We're going to play hard. The voice trembled. Are you sure? This could end, well, you know. It's already over if I don't do anything. You have 3 days. Don't let me down. He turned off the phone and sat on the bed, staring at the wall. Time was running out. If things went wrong, the next morning would be his last. Days in prison go by slowly, as if a clock is ticking by force, forcing you to hear every beat of your heart. But now time was going even faster than you wanted. Diddy had only 2 days left. He got the phone, made a call, and now he was waiting. He was waiting like a condemned man waits when the judge is dragging out his decision. But they didn't let him wait long here. During the lunch break, when he was standing in line for suspicious porridge, someone grabbed his shoulder. Let's go, Star. They're waiting for you. It was the same snake, only this time his eyes were colder. Diddy didn't object. He knew it was inevitable. He was taken to the backyard of the prison, where the cameras didn't always catch the image, and the guards suddenly didn't see what was happening. They were already waiting there. Scarred sat on a concrete block, slowly rolling a cigarette. 2 drug lords stood beside him, one of whom was banging his fist against his fist, as if waiting for permission to act. You've got a day left, Star. So what? Do you have anything yet? Diddy moved closer, but not too close. He knew they could pounce on him at any moment. The first tranche will be tomorrow. Everything is going according to plan. Scarred narrowed his eyes slyly. Do you know what will happen if you lie? I'm not lying. And if your operation goes awry? What then? Diddy didn't answer right away. He just stared straight into the predator's eyes, and then smiled slowly. Then we're all done for. There was a moment of silence. Scarred burst out laughing. It was the laughter of a wolf who had found his equal. Okay, brother. But if there is no result tomorrow, we will make you famous again. Only not on stage, but in the criminal chronicle. Diddy nodded, turned around and left. Tomorrow would be the decisive day. And he had to either get out of here or stay here forever. The night was sleepless. Diddy lay on a narrow bed, clutching the phone in his hands. He had already sent the last message to his people, now everything depended on them. If they failed, he would be killed before sunset. The next day everything started quickly. The guard approached the cell and, without saying a word, nodded his head. Let's go. He was led along the same route as yesterday, through the kitchen, to the backyard. But this time there were more people there. Scarred and his men, a couple more Latin mafia thugs, even a few guards stood a little further away, smoking, as if waiting for a show. Scarred took out a cigarette, lit it, looking intently at Diddy. What, brother? Where's our money? Diddy didn't answer right away. He calmly pulled out his phone, pressed a couple of buttons, and showed the screen. Here they are. Scarred raised an eyebrow, moved closer, and looked. Transaction. $250,000 transferred to an account tied to the prison network. Scarred looked at his men, who checked the phones. Everything was clean. The money was there. Well, you bastard, you did it, he growled, putting the phone back in his pocket. I thought I was going to have to cut you. Diddy exhaled, but he didn't relax. He knew that simply transferring the money wasn't enough. This is just the beginning, he said calmly. Scarred narrowed his eyes again. What do you mean? Diddy glanced around the crowd. You think money is everything? But what if I told you I could build you a real empire? Not just smuggling. Complete control of this place. Everyone around him fell silent. Scarred took a thoughtful drag on his cigarette. Go on. Diddy took a step forward. My people are free now. They can work for us while I'm here. We're taking control of the supplies, the guards, even the administration. You're not just surviving here anymore, you're going to be the masters. Scarred was silent. Then he smiled. You're a real deal, bitch. I thought you were just another glamorous bitch who wouldn't last a week here. But you know how to do business. He held out his hand. Welcome to real life, Diddy. You're one of us now. Diddy shook his hand, hiding his true emotions. He hadn't planned on remaining one of them. He was just buying himself time. But he already had a new plan. A plan that would put him back on top.